Time having arrived, I declare the regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council to order. Will you all please stand and salute the flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we start with the items on the agenda, I just want to take a moment to welcome the Trinity Academy National Junior Honor Society coming to visit. This is it. We got 5 or 6 years and we'll be looking out. All right, Mr. Clerk, item number 1.
Item number 1, acceptance of the minutes of the March 28th, 2022 City Council meeting.
Accepted and placed on file. Councilor Farwell.
Mr. President, I move that after reading, we take items 2 through 9 collectively, suspend the rules, and act on them this evening.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Appointment of City of Brockton retired police officer Scott Ullman as a special police officer. The appointment of City of Brockton retired police officer Robert Smith as a special police officer. The appointment of City of Brockton retired police officer Peter Skelly as a special police officer. The appointment of City of Brockton retired police officer Robert Sergio as a special police officer. The appointment of City of Brockton retired police officer William Healy as a special police officer. The appointment of City of Brockton retired police officer Alfred J. Gazzaro as a special police officer. The appointment of City of Brockton retired police officer Michael V. Damiano as a special police officer. And the appointment of City of Brockton retired police officer Charles J. Cassiani Jr. as a special police officer.
Those items are referred to finance.
No.
You have a motion to act on them
tonight. Sorry, missed that part of it. My mistake, Counselor. All right, the items are up. Madam Clerk.
Questions on a roll call vote?
Yep. Question on a roll call vote. Madam Clerk.
Azak?
Yes.
D'Agostino?
Yes.
Farwell?
Yes.
Lally?
Yes.
Mendez?
Yes.
Minicello?
Yes.
Nicastro?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Tavares?
Yes.
Texera?
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
Mr. President, I move for reconsideration in hopes it does not prevail.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor for reconsideration? All opposed? Reconsideration fails. The appointments are confirmed.
Item number 10, reappointment of Ernest Pettiford of Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Housing Authority Board for a 5-year term ending April 2027.
Referred to finance.
Appointment of Kyra Rodriguez of Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Redevelopment Authority for a 5-year term ending March 2027.
Referred to finance.
Appointment of Dennis Ianieri of Brockton, Mass. to the Parking Authority for a 5-year term ending April 2027.
Referred to finance.
We have a petition of In Good Health, Inc., licensed representative David Noble, president and CEO, requesting approval of a change in ownership and control, whereby 100% of the ownership interest in IGH will be acquired by Canna United LLC. Canna United will be the parent company to IGH, which will continue to operate under its current name, location, and management, including President and CEO David Noble. The Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission approved the change of ownership request at a public meeting held on March 10, 2022. A copy of the approval letter is attached as Exhibit A. And also today, the Brockton License Commission approved this also. You have copies at your desks.
Mr. President,
Councilor D'Agostino.
I make a motion that we take this item under suspension of the rules and vote on it this evening.
Second.
Mr. Noble is here to answer any questions that the council may have.
All right, motion's been properly made and seconded. Is this on the motion, Councilor?
On the motion.
On the motion, Councilor
Thank you.
Nicastro.
Mr. Noble.
First, you need to vote on acting
Councilor, we
tonight.
need a vote on the motion.
Okay.
Take a vote on the.
All right, motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Councilor Nicastro.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Mr. Noble. It's good to see you.
Good evening.
I have a question for you. So you're selling your interest in the business to these other entities and people?
Yes, 70% of the organization. We're retaining 30%.
And who will be the president after?
I will be.
You will remain?
Yes, I'm remaining president and CEO for 5 years of all the entities that will oversee both in good health and the parent company.
Okay. And after that, you'll be unable to compete, you'll have to do something else with your time?
I have a 5-year non-compete that starts as of the day of the closing, so at that point, I'd be free in 5 years.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you will remain. It has been a pleasure to work with you, and I think you've built quite a business, and I only wish you the best.
Well, thank you very much. I thank everybody for supporting us over the years, and, you know, we hope to continue to do good things for the city and continue to hire and, you know, be a good partner like we've always been, but thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Anything else? All right. Question is on granting.
Azak?
Yes.
DiAgostino?
Yes.
Farwell?
Yes.
Lally?
Yes.
Mendez?
Yes.
Minicello?
Yes.
Nicastro?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Tavares?
Yes.
Texera?
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
Mr. President, I move for
Counselor Azak.
reconsideration in hopes it does not prevail.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor of reconsideration? All opposed? Reconsideration fails. Petition is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 14, report of the Ordinance Committee for its meeting of March 29, 2022.
Accepted and placed on file.
Report of the Finance Committee for its meeting of April 4th, 2022.
Accepted and placed on file.
We have communications from the mayor appointing City of Brockton retired police officer Scott Ullman of Brockton as a special police officer.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor appointing City of Brockton retired police officer Robert Smith as a special police officer.
Accepted and filed.
We have a communication from the mayor appointing retired police officer Peter Skelly as a special police officer.
Accepted and filed.
We have a communication from the mayor appointing City of Brockton retired police officer Robert Sergio as a special police officer.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor appointing retired police officer William Healy as a special police officer.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor appointing City of Brockton retired police officer Alfred Gazzaro as a special police officer.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor appointing retired Brockton police officer Michael Damiano as a special police officer.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor appointing City of Brockton retired police officer Charles J. Cassiani Jr. as a special police officer.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor reappointing Ernest Pettiford of Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Housing Authority Board for a 5-year term ending April 2027.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor appointing Kyra Rodriguez of Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Redevelopment Authority for a 5-year term ending March 2027.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor appointing Dennis Ianieri of Brockton, Mass. to the Parking Authority for a 5-year term ending April 2027.
Accepted and filed.
We have a communication from the mayor informing the city council that effective at 12 p.m. April 4th, 2022, Lieutenant Brenda Perez has been appointed as acting police chief for the city of Brockton pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 61A.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor informing the city council Kelly Mallory is stepping down from the parking authority effective March 31st, 2022.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the mayor informing the city council that the Massachusetts Economic Development Bill of 2021 law, an act enabling partnerships for growth, amends Section 3A of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, the Zoning Act, to require that an MBTA community shall have at least one zoning district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right, as well as meets other criteria set forth in the statute. Please note that this is a mandate to zone, not a mandate to build. The Department of Planning and Economic Development will provide an implementation plan for the city of Brockton to maintain compliance with amended Section 3A of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the DPW Commissioner requesting that the City Council transfer $50,000 into sewer overtime in order to cover the projected overtime expenses and emergencies for the remainder of the year.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the Mayor recommending the same.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the CFO relative to the same.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the DPW Commissioner requesting that the City Council transfer $100,000 into water overtime in order to cover the projected overtime expenses and emergencies for the remainder of the year.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the Mayor recommending the same.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the CFO relative to the same.
Accepted and filed.
Communication from the Mayor in accordance with the vote of the City Council on April 11th, 2022, recommending that the City Council authorize the previously appropriated funds of the American Rescue Plan Act that exceed the $750,000 threshold for the following projects: City Hall exterior upgrades, City Hall HVAC, War Memorial HVAC, Senior Center expansion, emergency operations, Liberty Tree and Abolitionist Park, Sycamore Grove, nonprofit fund distribution, DW Field Clubhouse, Cosgrove Pool, Buckley Playground, Hancock Playground, Plymouth Street Playground, Holster Playground, Bent Playground, Hillstrom Farm Park, Parmenter Playground, Tukes Playground, and Otis Street Park, consistent with the spreadsheet as attached.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the CFO relative to the same.
Accepted and placed on file.
Unfinished business. We have the appointment of Eddie Sanon of West Chestnut Street, Brockton, Mass. as a constable in the city of Brockton for a term of 3 years. In City Council, March 28th, 2022. Read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on confirmation by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
DiAgostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The appointment is confirmed.
We have the appointment of Wayne Lake, 56 Short Street, Brockton, Mass. as a constable in the city of Brockton for a term of 3 years. In City Council, March 28th, 2022. Read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable with a caveat to have a lawyer's recommendation included, which you have at your seats, everybody, or you should have. That report was favorable.
The question is on confirmation by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
DiAgostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The appointment is confirmed.
We have the appointment of Derby Joissaint of Florence Street, Brockton, Mass. as a constable in the city of Brockton for a term of 3 years. In City Council, March 28th, 2022. Read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on confirmation by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
DiAgostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The appointment is confirmed.
We have the appointment of Bernie Hassan of Reese Circle, Brockton, Mass. to the Parking Authority for a 5-year term ending March 2027. In City Council, March 28th, 2022. Read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on confirmation by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
DiAgostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The appointment is confirmed.
We have the appointment of Jamie Hodges of 17 Stebbins Ave, Brockton, Mass. to the Zoning Board of Appeals alternate member for a 3-year term ending March 2025. In City Council, March 28th, 2022. Read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on confirmation by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
DiAgostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The appointment is confirmed.
We have the appointment of Dr. Larry Green of Pleasant Street, Brockton, Mass. as an alternate for the Council on Aging for a 3-year term ending March 2025. In City Council, March 28th, 2022. Read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on confirmation by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
DiAgostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The appointment is confirmed.
Number 44, ordinance. We have an ordinance amending Article 3, Division 2, Section 2-127, pay plan. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton, Article 3, Section 2-127 is hereby amended as follows. Effective date of this ordinance amendment shall be July 1st, 2022. Enforcement of this ordinance shall be subject to a supplemental appropriation by the mayor. The flat rate salaries to be paid to poll workers shall be amended by striking the language $28 per hour and inserting in its place $250 per day. And the following language under miscellaneous for poll workers shall be stricken. partial hours payable in quarter-hour increments. The flat rate salaries to be paid to election wardens shall be amended by striking the language $35 per hour and inserting in its place $300 per day. And the following language under miscellaneous for election warden shall be stricken, partial hours payable in quarter-hour increments. Further, the election warden's position shall be amended to include clerks. Adoption of the above changes shall result in the following. EL-W category, election wardens, clerks, $300 per day. Partial hours payable at direction of Executive Director of Election Commission. EL-2 poll workers, $250 per day. Partial hours payable at direction of Executive Director of Election Commission. In City Council, February 14th, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Ordinance. That report was favorable.
The question is on passage to a third reading as amended by a hand vote. All in favor of passing this to a third reading? All opposed? The motion passes.
Number 45, ordinance. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton as follows, that the City Council adopt the following amendment to Chapter 2, Article 1, Section 2-4.1. All meetings of the Zoning Board of Appeals as follows, to strike the language 7 p.m. and insert in its place 6 p.m., so that the ordinance shall read as follows. No meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals shall be convened prior to 6 p.m. In City Council, March 14th, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Ordinance. That report was favorable.
The question is on passage to a third reading by a hand vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Number 46, ordinance. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton as follows, that the City Council adopt the following amendments to the Section 27-24.3, humanitarian medical use of marijuana, relative to regulation and zoning of marijuana for medical use, to strike the language 8:30 a.m. and insert in its place 8 a.m., and strike the language 7 p.m. and insert in its place 10 p.m. in Section 27-24.3. In City Council, February 28th, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Ordinance. That report was favorable.
The question is on passage to a third reading by a hand vote. All in favor? All opposed? The item is passed back to the Ordinance Committee.
Number 47, ordinance. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton, Article 2, Section 14-49, panhandling, is hereby repealed in its entirety, and the section shall be stricken in their entirety. In City Council, February 14th, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Ordinance. That report was favorable.
The question is on passage to a third reading by a hand vote. All in favor? All opposed? The item is passed back for a third reading.
Number 48, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $1,300 from the Massachusetts Unwanted Opioid and Benzodiazepine Product Stewardship Program, Fiscal Year 22 Community Safety Projects Grant Program, $1,300, to the City of Brockton Police Department Fiscal Year 22 Community Safety Projects Grant Program Fund, $1,300. These grant funds will be used for the Brockton Police Department Safety Projects Education Program. In City Council, March 28th, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
DiAgostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted.
Number 49, corrected order that the following name sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $75,000 from election personal services other than overtime, $20,000, and auditor purchase of services, $55,000, to auditor mail purchase of services, $75,000. This transfer is necessary due to large mailing for the two elections that were held this past year. In City Council, March 28th, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
DiAgostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted.
Number 50, ordered that the city council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $1 million from Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development Legislative Earmark Funding Grant to the Council on Aging. This earmark will be used to expand the Council on Aging facility to provide better social distancing within an enclosed structure and updated ventilation improvements. In City Council, March 28, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
D'Agostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted.
Number 51, ordered that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred, as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $250,000 from retirement contributory to Plymouth County OPEB Trust Program, PCOT. In City Council, March 28, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
D'Agostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted.
Number 52, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $150,000 from Commonwealth of Massachusetts Marketing Partnership / Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism Legislative Earmark Funding Grant to Mayor's Office. This earmark will be used for the creation and installation of the Marvin Hagler statue. In City Council, March 28, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
D'Agostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted.
Item number 53, that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred, as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $1,400,000 from certified retained earnings, water, to Department of Public Works, water, other contracted services. In City Council, March 28, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
D'Agostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted.
Item number 54, that pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 4, the City Council authorizes the mayor to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the town of East Bridgewater for treatment of wastewater. In City Council, March 28, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable with the request that the city solicitor be here tonight to answer any questions.
Councilors, if there are no objections, we do have the city solicitor here to give us, her part of this. We were unable to have her. There was a little error. I apologize for that last week. Madam Solicitor.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. How are you? I sent around some materials this afternoon. They are explanatory in nature. I think the crux of a lot of the questions is on the billing methodology. And there's really two different ways to bill, on a block rate bill or on a proportional share. This IMA is built on a proportional share based on consumption and projected future consumption. That is essentially, the majority of the questions I've received is, how is the billing? It is the formula that is incorporated, wherein, just like Abington and just like Whitman, East Bridgewater pays a direct proportional share of our RWF cost for treating our wastewater. And so part of the documents that you see are what Whitman's audited bills looked like for 2021, because obviously 2022 is not finished yet. And on the front page, the rate calculation and invoice, that's what Whitman paid in 2021. What Whitman paid in 2016, $785,517. And I offer that because on a block rate billing system, you only get an increase when the rates are increased. The way that our AWRF contract reads, we pay a fixed fee every year for the services that are provided. And then we pay a little bit of a bump every year for a variable increase. So the East Bridgewater IMA is based on a proportional share of our AWRF costs, which include those annual increases that the city would see no matter if East Bridgewater were a part of our system or not.
Councilors, you got any questions?
So what is in front of you is authorizing the mayor as the executive to enter into an IMA with the town of East Bridgewater that is built upon the same formula that the council approved for Abington and Whitman. The development and the prospective development is quite different from Avon, and so that is the main reason there's not a block billing rate. Other than that, the general questions I got were on the attachments. As I'm sure you heard from the folks from West Bridgewater last time, there is a lot of passion, innovation, and ideas that are percolating in East Bridgewater surrounding this project. The creation of a special sewer district, bonding authority, this IMA, private development, all of these things are happening simultaneously. So the actual flow is certainly not available yet, but the projected flow is based on the 75,000 gallons per day, which is approximately 27.4 million gallons a year. And certainly the DPW commissioner is here with me for more technical questions, but I think that is the gist of the issue. Proportional costs based on their actual use, which would result in a reduction to Brockton's costs that we pay to the AWRF in the same fashion as Whitman and Abington.
What's that, Counselor?
Of course, I'm sure any questions.
We've
And I would-
got Counselor Minicello, his hand up.
Good evening, Counselor. How are you?
Hello, sir. Good, thank you.
Could you just clarify, if in fact the town of East Bridgewater wants to increase its usage above the 75,000 gallons per day, can you just talk to us about the actual mechanism in terms of, can they do that? If they can do that, what do they have to do? Does the city of Brockton have checks and balances over that? You know,
Sure.
we make the decision in terms of what they can do over that, so that our capacity to serve our citizens is not interfered with in any way, shape, or form.
I appreciate the question, and I think Commissioner Hill fielded similar questions since last week. And what I would point you to, Counselor, is Section 2.2 BI talks about potential increases in increments of 20,000 gallons at a time. This development has a potential usage need for 150,000 gallons per day. The mayor and the commissioner and the DPW department were not necessarily comfortable trying to put a pin in that volume of capacity at this stage of the process. So that's how 75 was developed. But to your direct question, it is, any amendment to the agreement would have to be mutual. It would have to be in writing. And a conversation with the DPW commissioner is not going to create the authority for an amendment to the agreement. That authority lies with the executive, and it also includes the words, it won't be unreasonably withheld. Certainly, I'm a Brocktonian myself, and it's very exciting, all the development that's happening here. And I don't think it is out of line to say that it would not be unreasonable to withhold future capacity increases in light of our needs.
And that goes to really the question. We certainly don't want to enter into an agreement. I think you would agree that our wrists or hands will be tied for future development if in fact we were in some way, shape, or form through the terms of this agreement, didn't have that checks and balances to say, wait a minute, we agreed to X, our system can handle X, you want Y, but we have plans for Brockton and Brocktonians who want to develop property, so there has to be obviously the checks and balances that Brockton has on the allowance of future increases. So you have no doubt that this is inherent in the agreement that protects the city of Brockton from any increases that that could interfere with our own development. We have that ability to veto, so to speak, any additional increases or just to say no.
Not only is there, I think, express indication of what the actual term is, being the 75,000 gallons per day, 27.4 a year, there is further assurance because we operate under a permit for this plant. You know, if there is overages there is penalties for overages, exactly to this point, because I mean, East Bridgewater and Brockton aren't the only people on this system either. We have other contractual obligations. And we have the duty to provide that utility. So Counselor, I think because the development is prospective, as included in the Weston and Sampson report, there is a desire potentially for more, but all that's authorized is 75,000, and the only way it can be changed is express agreement written by the parties.
So I make no apologies for being protective for the citizens of Brockton and the use of our sewage system. I'm all in favor of cooperating and, being a good neighbor, but that ends when it comes to Brocktonians being in a position where our needs would be interfered with. So thank you for answering that question.
Thank you.
You all set, Counselor?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you very much.
All right. Counselor Farwell, were you?
Thank
All
you.
right, and then,
Good evening, and please accept my deepest appreciation for all of the conversations we've had and for your willingness to answer questions. As you may or may not know, we did not have a copy of this last week until 5:13 in the afternoon, and there wasn't time to print it out and go through it. So there really were very limited questions and limited opportunity to evaluate the agreement. You just said something a minute ago, and I'm not sure if I'm reading it correctly. You said that after the initial 75,000 gallons per day, the 20,000 increment provision would kick in, and you said that would be an executive decision. So if we approve this IMA, does that mean that the mayor could then, pursuant to this IMA, any mayor, not just Mayor Sullivan, decide, okay, East Bridgewater, we're going to give you another 20,000 gallons, or we're going to give you another 20,000 gallons. So I guess what I'm asking basically is, would any amendment fall to the executive, or would it have to come back to a city council vote?
I think that the mayor would welcome further conversation and to be invited back at the time any request is made for additional flow. I think that amendments could be entered into without further city council approval, but I'm not suggesting that that is the process that has to be adhered to. And I think the entire process, because the development is still prospective, should be open and transparent and spoken about.
Well, my preference would be, and looking ahead to other city councils, if we approve an IMA this evening, in my opinion, that IMA should not be materially changed without a vote of the council. And I would say to my colleagues, I would not want to grant to, nothing against Mayor Sullivan or future mayors, I would not want to cede that authority to be able to amend this agreement and add another 20,000 or 40,000 gallons per day without having it go before the council and have a debate and discussion and find out where we are with respect to our water needs. Let me go on to another question, and this came up last week because, and I thank the people from East Bridgewater who were here presenting information. There was mention made of a $150,000 one-time connection fee. I can't find that in the IMA. And you know, maybe I've read so much and the eyes have failed me. And as you know, I emailed you saying there were a couple of attachments that I didn't have, but I can't see where that is contained in this agreement.
And that is, your eyes are not eluding you.
Thank God.
In section 2, as this project is both related to privately owned parcels and publicly owned parcels, much like with the Avon IMA, there was a development agreement that accompanied the IMA. So in about the middle of the 4th page begins, East Bridgewater and Brockton shall cause to be recorded, a recordable form binding the following duties, and there's some enumeration A through F.
Yeah.
And part of those, part of what the development agreement, while in still draft form, would contemplate is the type of thing that you're identifying, a connection fee. And, you know, certainly the private landowners aren't necessarily responsible for the sewer infrastructure, you know, but other private parties, even in the city here, are responsible for their own connection fee.
Well, here's my point. We're taking a resource that is basically owned by the city of Brockton, and we're ceding a portion of that resource to East Bridgewater. What they do with it, how they engage with their residents, their businesses, whether they create a sewer district or not, is of no concern to me. I just want to make sure that if Brockton is giving up a portion of its resources, that we are justly compensated for that. And as you know, because I emailed it to you and a few others, the town of Ayer and the town of Groton, Massachusetts, both within the Commonwealth, both subject to the same rules and regulations regarding treatment of wastewater, they entered into an agreement for 40,500 gallons per day, and the compensation given to the town of Ayer was $211,000. Here, East Bridgewater is asking for 54% more. They're asking for 75,000 gallons per day. So if you do the basic math, 211 times 1.54 comes out to, I think, 310,000. In my opinion, to my colleagues, I think Brockton should be getting a larger fee, one-time connection fee, for the privilege of East Bridgewater hooking into our wastewater treatment system. And I'm going to go on to another subject, which it's not within your responsibility, Solicitor Bridges, but the DPW Commissioner was kind enough to send out an attachment today regarding all of the downtown projects that are either projected to be completed, permitted, or under construction. And he attached a certain consumption of sewer services that would be attached to those. What we didn't include, and I have yet to see anyone from Brockton put together a comprehensive list, we have not evaluated the Troutbrook project. Planned 250 to 300 apartments and 31 single-family detached units. Thatcher Street, that's already approved for 160 units. The Mather property at Quincy and Center Street, that's an approved apartment building. The ZPA granted all of the required relief, 39 units. We have a Rutland Square project coming in, 65 units. We have Wedgewood Country Club, where you have 38 to 40 single-family, 4-bedroom homes contemplated. We have the Permaline property at 132 Court Street. That was just approved by the ZBA for 151 dwelling units. We have the Lovett Brook Study Area, where we contemplate a life science building, commercial development. We still have the Christos property, where we don't know what's going to happen to that. And we have the Brockton Public Schools. If we were to build another academic house on the Brockton High School complex, that would obviously create the need for wastewater capacity. And lastly, and it just came in today, someone wants to put up 10 a 10-unit apartment building on North Pearl Street. So what's my point of all this? I would be much more comfortable if we had the projections on what will be our needs here in the city for all of this development, all of the work that's being done by the Department of Planning and Economic Development, before I turn around and I grant authority to East Bridgewater for 75,000 gallons and maybe more, as we now hear that they may need more. And the last comment that I think I would make is that the formula that's being used, the consumption by East Bridgewater, as a variable in that ratio to determine how much they're going to compensate us, they may not reach 27.4 million gallons for a couple of years. Isn't that predicated on different phases of development, if you know Solicitor Bridges? So the amount that would come to us initially could be much less because that variable will be much less.
That would be most likely true. Most
So
likely
it
true.
could be 2 or 3 or 4 years before we ever get up to the 27.4 million, which would trigger that variable and which would drive the amount of compensation that Brockton would receive from East Bridgewater.
That would be true because it's based on actual usage, so there wouldn't actually be usage.
Right. I think, reserving the right after everyone else has spoken, I think I'm done for now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor D'Agostino.
Good evening. Thank you for the folks from East Bridgewater for being here again tonight, and thank you, Solicitor Bridges, for joining us this evening. I know you've, after working a full day, now are still here at, almost 8 o'clock at night, so I appreciate you being here.
We all are. Thank you.
I know, but I still just appreciate you being here and appreciate all the time you've put into, because you've had many discussions with, I'm sure, many of us leading up to this evening. So, and I thank you for the time that you spent with me going over this. A couple things. So, and my colleague, Councilor Farwell, kind of alluded to this. So if they wanted to increase capacity, the mayor could do that without any approval from this council. Is there, and the answer may simply just be no, is there any, and this is not anything to do with the current mayor, who knows who will be mayor at the time that this would come up, is there anything that could be done that would require that increase to come to the council?
I would defer to Legislative Council, but you all have the authority over the final approval in terms of the vote and what it looks like. So a respectful suggestion would be to condition the vote to return for increased capacity, 20,000 gallons per day or greater.
Okay. I don't know if is that something we could,
An amendment.
but that's an amendment we could make, because
And
that
that's been
might.
done, there's precedent.
Okay, because that might address some of the, some of my other concerns, like others, increased capacity. Our city's growing and our population's growing and our needs. But again, if we've put that, for lack of a better way to put it, that amendment in, that fail-safe in where, maybe I'd be more comfortable if I knew that was there, so that, again, we got to take another look at it and see what the needs are at that time, because we're making a lot of predictions, So, and then, let's see, capacity, sometimes I can't read my own writing here. Oh, and then also I just wanted to make sure that the commissioner is comfortable that, obviously when we take in more sewage coming in, there's going to be some increase in our cost of handling that, right? There's, getting rid of it, or getting rid of the cake, as you will. I'm sure the more of that we're producing, that cost goes up. There's chemical costs, there's things like that. I just want to make sure that we're going to be bringing in enough revenue from this that more than offsets the cost, the increased cost in operating. Are you comfortable that we would be?
That formula, Counselor, we spent a lot of time on that formula with the prior CFO, Mr. Condon, with Attorney Fedorov. And when I say a long time, we spent a couple of years on that formula to try to figure out a way to get the audited financials that would address those issues. So yes, I am comfortable with it.
Okay. All right, thank you. I don't know how we would do an amendment, but. at the end. Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not opposed to the amendment in terms of adding some language in the contract to basically state that prior to an increase in the sewer, that increase comes back in front of the council. But that being said, I often bring this up because I know we're located just south of Avon, and there's a great tendency in this city to want us to sound and look like South Avon. This is the city of Brockton, and not a single day goes by that we're not looking for resources to bring into our community. But to go even beyond that, we have some competent people that we rely on in this city to make decisions on behalf of the citizens of this city. We have a competent DPW commissioner, a competent city solicitor, a competent mayor downstairs, and a CFO. That took a great deal of time to negotiate these contracts with the various towns and the various entities that come in. Just like we don't have a say in what goes on in the increases or decreases with certain negotiations that are done, we need to keep in mind that the job of providing sewage or water to the citizens of Brockton is the function of the executive branch. We can regulate things, but whether or not the water flows tomorrow morning is Pat Hill's responsibility. It's not my responsibility. I have to make sure that he has the funding to go along and provide the water. Whether or not the water flows and somebody's doing something with the water is the responsibility of the solicitor to see to it that laws aren't being broken in terms of providing water to the citizens of Brockton. So this whole thing, I mean, I sat here a couple months ago, we agreed to provide water to Avon. There was not a great deal of discussion whether or not we're going to be running out of sewage, we're going to be running out of water. We should be thinking as a city to how do we increase our capacity so that all these other towns that surround the city are hooking up. You know, we don't have the resources that some other communities do have, but we have the city in the middle of a bunch of little towns that we can somehow assume the responsibility of being the city in the middle of a bunch of these little towns to be able to become a regional center to provide regional services to this community. And that's how we increase our revenue. Because now, look at it this way. We decide to can this contract. Is anybody here saying how we're going to replace the $250,000 a year that we're supposed to be getting in sewer? I haven't heard a single person that says, well, let's not do this contract because I got this other guy that's going to bring us $300,000. You know, is somebody else going to bring up additional funding into this community? But it seems that we're always finding reasons to prevent us from moving forward and act like a city that we should act like. We have a ton of kids who are sitting here looking for resources for things to do during the summer months. We don't have a great deal of resources because everything is so tight in the city. But every time an opportunity shows up that brings additional resources in this community, we come up with the excuses as to why we shouldn't do it. It's because the rain is coming sideways. It's because it's not raining today, it's raining tomorrow, whatever the excuses might be. But to me, I find it ridiculous that we sit here and we often hear that, you know what, we've got the legislative branch and we got the executive branch. The executive decides on contracts, but now all of a sudden the executive has decided on the contract. We're going to sit here and nitpick that contract. To me, it makes no sense and it's disrespectful to the individuals who we pay a great deal of money to make those decisions for the city and the taxpayers of this city. The job of providing sewer, again, let me say that, is not the job of the city council. It's the job of the guy sitting downstairs who happens to be Mayor Sullivan at this time. It's their responsibility. It's Pat Hill who's up there. That's their responsibility. And I think we got to keep that in mind. A contract was negotiated. It's brought to us for ratification. We should ratify it. because out of common courtesy to individuals who we pay professionally to do this job, it should be their job to do the job, and we should let them do that job. I brought up some things here in the past. I remember just last year, we were talking about the public safety building. I wanted one more week so I can ask some questions about that building. It passed on this body 9-2. Myself and Councilor Cardoza were the only two that voted against. Not because we were against the public safety building, because we wanted one more week to ask questions. There was no common courtesy given to me because I wanted to ask questions. But now all of a sudden, we're gonna hit the pause button because some people have whatever agendas that might be. Because I find it fascinating how we say okay to Avon, but now it's a problem with East Bridgewater. Is there something going on that the rest of us are not privy to? You know, but I find it fascinating how there's no common courtesy when some of us have questions, but yet when some others have questions, we're gonna hit the pause button because we wanna ask questions. I don't understand that. You know, and I wish that somebody would explain that to me. You know, because I remember 9-2 the vote was, because they wanted to vote on it that evening, and that was the end of it. And all we wanted was just to say, can we just postpone this to next week so I can ask one question? No, it's gonna go forward, and that was the end of it. So now I don't understand what the whole hoopla is all about, you know, when something has been negotiated that we should be moving forward to, and now we're hitting the pause button. You know, and that's what I don't quite understand. And thank you for your time, and thank you for the work that you guys did on this. And I will definitely be supporting this because enough is enough. You know, and I asked my councilors, colleagues to do the same thing so we can move forward and stop these little games that we play on this body because it's ridiculous. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nicastro.
Thank you, President Lally. Good evening, Solicitor Bridges.
Hello.
Remind me, I want to mention Avon, but we'll do it at the end, okay? I have some questions on this intermunicipal agreement draft.
Okay.
And my first question is about the service area. And it's mentioned on the first page in the whereases, and it's also mentioned somewhere else. Oh, it's mentioned in 3.9A, I think? Yeah.
It's also not referenced by attachment, but right in the middle of page 4, also in 2.2, or 2.1.
2.1, right? Okay.
East Bridgewater will submit a final development plan to the city of Brockton, which will include all sewer flow usage projections when information becomes available, and any new additional water, and someone else had this question too, or sewer lines or connections by East Bridgewater outside of the North Bedford Sewer District, right, you know, are not contemplated by what is here. That is not anything outside of the attachment that defines the sewer district is not contemplated by this agreement.
Okay. So it's just what's shown on Form 1, which is the first Figure 1, which is the first attachment that is attached to this.
Yes.
And that's it, without amendment.
That is it.
Okay.
And I mean, it's not incorporated explicitly into the IMA, but whether via email or if you've had a chance to look at it yet, the Weston and Sampson feasibility study that East Bridgewater commissioned is included, and it very much more specifically describes the locus of the proposed area and the contemplated parcels. It's also the subject of special legislation and an attachment that defines the area.
Okay, hang on to that summary agreement for a minute. And the reason that I bring that up, gentlemen from East Bridgewater, and thank you for being here, is because in December, I had a conversation with your planning board chair, Mr. Gardner, and he told me I absolutely didn't know what I was talking about, and that a residential subdivision that was in front of them at that time, located off East Street in Brockton, but mostly on land in East Bridgewater, was absolutely going to be covered by this IMA. And I checked repeatedly, and I just want to confirm with you that that is not so. Thank you. the summary memorandum that you sent to all of us today and that I received when I asked for it last week, it's dated January of 2021. And it contemplates 150,000 gallons of water, and it's kind of a little confusing to put it in the context of what we're doing right now. And I think that's because that was what was being sought or being contemplated a year ago. And I just want to confirm that with you.
That is correct, that the feasibility study identifies an average daily flow of 150,000 gallons that's phased in, and I certainly would defer to folks in East Bridgewater on this point. However, after conversations with East Bridgewater about Brockton's capacity, Brockton's future needs, the development of this, the development of East Bridgewater, it was mutually agreed that 75,000 gallons per day was enough at this stage for phase one.
Okay. And in 2.1, just above A through F, it mentions a covenant. And what I learned speaking with you today is that covenant actually refers to the separate development agreement.
Correct.
Which we don't have, but that addresses other financial conditions and requirements of this agreement. And it will run to East Bridgewater, Brockton, and the private parties.
That is what's contemplated.
Who
Correct.
will benefit from this.
Correct.
And that's why we don't have everything.
Correct.
We don't have all the terms. I've been looking for terms for a
Well,
week.
I would suggest you have all the material terms. The material terms are what is, well, the development agreement is incorporated by reference, just like for Avon. The material terms are the formula in which East Bridgewater will pay, because the main point of an IMA is that Brockton cannot lien private landowners. If we provide a utility to residents or business owners in East Bridgewater and they don't pay their utility bills, without an IMA, we cannot capture those bills.
Right. Now, this is a question that came up. What if contaminants pass? We know that one of the contemplated uses of the land in this district is for a hospital. Okay, so what if heavy metals pass? What if bad pharmaceuticals go into the water system? How do we know, and what is the remedy?
Well, we know because we're gonna, the agreement contemplates sampling at points. And also, they have contractual obligations about the flow that they send to Brockton, with penalties for breaking those obligations. And we also, the NIPD's permit, which is the permit that our AWRF runs off of, is referenced in the agreement, and the CMR relative to environmental protection is also referenced, and their need to comply with all applicable state and federal law.
Okay. And can we terminate this contract?
I was not necessarily prepared for that question off the cuff, but if you give me a second.
Termination comes up in, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Termination comes up in the context of discussing the city's contract with Aquaria. We're not able to terminate that.
So, I mean.
And so that's why I ask about it in this agreement.
So certainly I would, avoid trying to compare, because I'm not familiar with the intricacies of the Aquaria agreement or our obligations related to maybe termination. What I will say that's different about this agreement and Aquaria is that Aquaria is a private party, East Bridgewater is another municipality, and sewerage and treatment of that is a utility. So the agreement contemplates binding arbitration for most all disagreements. And I would suggest to you that decision was made because I don't think either party contemplates just cutting anybody off. It's a utility, and none of us would expect that to happen to any of us. So what it contemplates is figure it out, or somebody's gonna have to be a decision maker for what is a 20-year contract. So it is limited at
It is limited in duration.
Okay. And as you know, I represent Ward 4, and Ward 4 has areas on the West Bridgewater line that are desperate for redevelopment. And so I'm very concerned about, will there be water and sewer capacity to support such development? And that's why last week I wrote to you, the DPW commissioner, and the mayor, and a number of others, saying, spell it out for me. Show me the projects that are approved, the projects that are in the pipeline we expect to be approved, and the part that we're reserving for when that fantastic commercial business comes in to employ lots of Brockton residents. I want there to be enough water for it. And I did receive something today from Commissioner Hill. I was disappointed by it. I know it was based on another department's work, because there were a lot of projects that I was aware of, including some in Ward 4, that were not included in it. And I can calculate the usage of the additional residential units, and adding it to what was sent to me, I think we're going to be obliged to at least 285,000 gallons per day for residential usage, and I don't quite know how to figure out commercial flex property and commercial development, because ultimately it depends on what they're used for, a warehouse versus food manufacturing. And so the number is important to me, because I've got this area that needs to be redeveloped, and I don't want to run out of water and sewer capacity. That's part of my job as the Ward 4 counselor. So, and that's why it matters to me, and that's why I want more accurate information. This is not over for me, regardless of what happens tonight, because it matters. Finally, on Avon, the AMA that came in front of us on Avon was for 40,000 gallons a day, right?
I believe so, 30 and 40, 40 and 30.
Yeah.
Water and wastewater.
Right, 40,000 wastewater. And when we did some research, you helped me with that research. The final number was 15.
I'm not saying you're not right, but I don't.
I think it was. We got it down to 15 because that's what was really realistic when you looked at the number of apartments and what they use, 110 gallons per day and all that. What I'm trying to say is we saved a good amount of capacity by looking further into it, and I feel that's my job. And I work hand in hand with all of you in this. I admire all of you. I appreciate you're all taking my calls and doing this research for me, but at the end of the day, this is what I'm supposed to do. I may have a few more things.
Councilor Castro, just on the capacity question, I would just respectfully suggest that that exact inquiry occurred. East Bridgewater asked for 150. And the mayor went to the DPW commissioner, and he went to the contract administrator, and he said, you know, this came to him before he was in office, and he said to Commissioner Rowley and Dave Norton, you know, should we do these projects? The capacity exists based on the 18 million gallons a day that the permit currently has authorization for, and our usage of approximately 17 and a half right now. And then our permit is being reapplied for, and so I'm not making any suggestion that there will be increased capacity, but that's always something that's being talked about.
And I buy lottery tickets too. So
Somebody wins.
That's right. Not me lately, but in any event.
Towns of Massachusetts.
Thank you very much. I may have a few more questions and comments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. We also do have Commissioner Hill and quite a few civic leaders from the town of East Bridgewater here as well, if anyone would like to add anything. But right now, I'm going to Counselor Minicello.
Hi, Counselor. Just a follow-up. With regard to the mechanism where you said that right now it's set that the mayor would have, as the executive, the ability to approve a proposed increase above the initial numbers. Is that standard operating procedure, or is this unique to this one IMA? You know, what are the other agreements that deal with, obviously, myself and my colleague, Councilor D'Agostino, are coming from the school side of things. So what is standard operating procedure with regard to the checks and balances? Are the other agreements similar to this, or is it different?
It varies, I think, is the best answer to provide you. It varies. It really depends on the authorization to take the act. And here, it is derived from statute. Whenever municipalities want to contract with each other, there's a specific way in which they must do it. The mayor in our plan of government is acknowledged as a CEO, so in some forms, he has express ability to contract, as any executive would, but then that authority is impacted. Specifically, collective bargaining agreements are one scenario where the mayor does not act unilaterally. Procurement contracts, or some contracts with a greater than 3-year duration, the mayor does not act unilaterally. Oftentimes, you all give the person that is the mayor express authority to act. So, I mean, there's a variety of ways.
And I guess this would be a follow-up for Commissioner Hill. My colleague, Councilor Farwell, and obviously Councilor Nicastro, mentioned different projects in the wings, so to speak. Contemplating those, in addition to obviously this IMA, is this in any way going to jeopardize projects in Brockton that they had briefly described in terms of capacity in this contract and obligation?
I would have to say, Council, I would want to have more information before I made any kind of decision on that. I don't have those lists in front of me. I don't have those projects in front of me. I'm not sure if they're all commercial, if they're all residential. Everything has a little bit of a different impact. So I think it would be a little premature for me to say one way or another until I saw that list.
All right. So if the city council then, I guess Councilor Bridges recommended an amendment where the city council would have the authority to approve future increases, that obviously, I guess, would satisfy perhaps the future question as to whether or not the ability of Brocktonians and Brockton projects would be placed in jeopardy, because we would hold the checks and balances on that directly, correct?
By amending the order for any, I would respectfully suggest it be a material change, as Councilor Farwell, I think, actually highlighted, an increase of 20,000 gallons, I think, is a material change. But on those types of things, if the authority was reserved for the mayor, for the council to have to approve any amendments, that could be accomplished.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I make no apologies for attaching money to the sale of our resources. So I guess I would say to our neighbors in East Bridgewater, instead of $150,000 as a one-time connection fee, would you be amenable to increasing that? Would you need a lot of time, or is that something that could be done, you conferring this evening? I think based on what Groton and Ayer did and the capacity that they requested, I have no reason to doubt that they didn't engage in the same type of negotiations that probably went on with Brockton. But frankly, I don't think $150,000 is sufficient for something that's, my understanding is it will save East Bridgewater millions. If you had to build your own plant, am I correct when it's about 7.5 million? I'll put Mr. Sealing on the spot for that. Is it about 7.5 million if you had to build your own plant, sir? I think I read that, but I could be wrong.
As far as I know, and I've only worked for the city of for the town of East Bridgewater for a little over 4 months, there haven't been any recent contemplations of building our own treatment plant that would serve this type of capacity. And of course, given the price of construction and associated costs, whatever estimate that may have come up a year or two ago would be radically different today. And there's been no contemplation while I've been there about building our own treatment plant. In regards to any requests for additional monies, given the open meeting law, and we couldn't make an agreement tonight at all to make that change. I could certainly and would welcome the opportunity to bring back any proposals to the Board of Selectmen. They are meeting on Wednesday, and so if the City Council saw fit to make changes in the IMA that the Town of East Bridgewater Board of Selectmen has already agreed to per negotiations between the City Solicitor's Office and our council, I'd be happy to bring those back, and you should have an answer fairly rapidly. But I can't propose a figure from our side. That's coming from you all as to what you feel is appropriate.
I understand. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to close, at least for now, in case anyone else wants to speak. The legislature, in its wisdom, gave the City Council the authority to approve an intermunicipal agreement. If there are some people in this body or in the community who feel that a 20-year contract and provisions for payments to the citizens and the transfer of a portion of our resources to another community is no big deal, that's fine. I can only speak for myself. I think my role is to ask probative questions. I think my role is to clarify issues. I think my role is to bring out more information for the public. It's not playing games, and I'm frankly getting a little tired of hearing that every time people ask questions, legitimate questions, we're against progress. I mean, that's just nonsense. If a counselor isn't supposed to ask questions about something that we have to vote on and then justify our position to our constituents, then why have us? That's why we're here. That's why the legislature put this in our lap. This actually becomes our IMA once the mayor sends it here and we approve it. So I make no apologies for that, and I'll reserve the right to offer an amendment to see how whether it falls or stands later as we proceed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. President.
Councilor D'Agostino.
I make a motion to amend the order to establish a condition that any increase in added capacity of average daily flow shall be subject to City Council approval.
Second.
Motion to amend has been properly made and seconded. All in favor of the amendment? All opposed? The amendment passes. Councilors, if there's nobody else, I would say that the question is on adoption.
No, I was going to offer.
Okay, all right. Councilor Farwell.
I'm going to offer a motion, and I'll write it up for you, that the agreement be amended to require a one-time $300,000 connection fee payable in $30,000 installments each annual year, on an annual basis for 10 years. That is consistent with what another two towns did for less capacity than that which is being requested by East Bridgewater.
Mr. President, I just have a question to our
Councilor Azak.
legislative council. With what Councilor Farwell just brought up, is that possible on top of or is he negotiating this contract?
Yeah, I think it has the appearance of the legislative body trying to negotiate the terms of the intermunicipal agreement, which is delineated to the mayor as the CEO.
Just if I could, a point of inquiry then how can we pass an amendment which just changed the substance of how future increases would be approved? We just took that authority away from the executive and granted it to the city council. What is the difference? Why is that not negotiating the terms and conditions of the agreement?
Because there are certain terms that I would say would fall within the mayor's probably request discretion. What you could do is you could say no on this order because it's not the price that the council wants to approve, and then that tells the mayor that they have to submit something anew with perhaps a price increase that included in that, but like price, length of term, those types of like material terms are within the purview of the mayor. And you're increasing rather than reducing too. So I just don't think that you have the ability to negotiate the agreement.
I defer to you, and I would, I don't believe it received a second, but I will withdraw the motion then. I certainly do not want to do anything that would be contrary to law.
Can we do the vote, please?
All right, well,
Questions on adoption?
right, yeah, the question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
D'Agostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted.
No, I think it was 9-1.
Oh,
Councilor Castro, what was your vote? It was no. Oh, it was yes.
Yep.
I'm sorry, my mistake.
Soft-spoken.
the order is adopted.
Mr. President,
Counselor Azak.
I move for reconsideration in hopes it does not prevail.
Second.
Motion to reconsider has been properly made and seconded. All in favor of reconsideration? All opposed? Reconsideration fails.
God.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 55. Whereas world events have caused a significant increase in prices for ordinary goods and products consumed by residents in all communities, including the city of Brockton, and whereas for the fiscal year ending last June 30, 2021, the state reported the following: surplus of more than $5.86 billion in tax revenue from the state comptroller. Whereas on March 18th, 2022, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts issued a mid-March 2022 report indicating significant revenue beyond that which was received the prior year period as follows. Number one, $75 million in regular sales tax, up $27 million versus the same period in March 2021. Number two, $27 million in meals tax, up $16 million versus the same period in March 2021. Number three, $51 million in motor vehicle sales tax, up $6 million versus the same period in March 2021. Ordered that the City Council respectfully requests our state legislative delegation file and support legislation which will reduce or suspend the 24-cent tax on a gallon of gasoline to provide relief to residents of the city and the Commonwealth. Provided further that upon approval, the city clerk shall forthwith transmit to members of the legislative delegation a copy of this order. In City Council, March 28th, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
D'Agostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted.
Item 56, ordered that the city hereby accepts as a gift from Route 24 Realty Trust 3.5 acres of land, which is situated just east of Route 24, north of the city of Brockton boundary and west of the Brockton Reservoir, on South Street, Avon, Mass, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A and a half. The mayor is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to effectuate such gift. In City Council, March 28th, 2022, read and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance. That report was favorable.
The question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak.
Yes.
D'Agostino.
Yes.
Farwell.
Yes.
Lally.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Minicello.
Yes.
Nicastro.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Tavares.
Yes.
Texera.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative.
The order is adopted.
Item 57, ordinance, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton as follows: that the City Council adopt the following ordinance relative to the permitting and regulation of food truck operations in the City of Brockton as attached.
Referred to the Committee on Ordinance.
Ordinance, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton as follows: that the City Council adopt the following zoning ordinance relative to food truck operations in the City of Brockton as attached.
Referred to the Ordinance Committee
And planning.
and Planning. Okay. Referred to the Ordinance Committee and Planning.
Number 59, ordered that the City Council hereby declares that the land off Thatcher Street in Brockton, Mass., identified as Lot A containing 40,000 square feet, described in a plan dated December 9th, 2021, entitled Proposed Acquisition in Brockton, Plymouth, Mass., scale 1 inch to 50 inches, prepared by J.K. Holmgren Engineering, Inc., registered professional engineers and land surveyors, and more fully identified in Exhibit A attached hereto, is surplus property and available for disposition, and the mayor and/or treasurer be authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to sell the property to Thatcher Street East LLC, a Massachusetts limited liability corporation having a usual place of business at 561 Thatcher Street, Brockton, Mass., Plymouth County, reserving to itself an easement in Lot A for the purposes of installing, maintaining, replacing, removing, and using underground utilities, including, without limitation, sewers, drains, water mains, gas pipes, underground electric lines, underground telephone lines, and underground cable television lines, therein and thereunder, under the easement area, all of which underground sewers, drains, water mains, gas pipes, electric light, power and telephone wires, and cable television lines shall remain the property of the persons installing the same.
Referred to the Real Estate Committee.
Ordered that the following named sum being the same as hereby transferred as was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $50,000 from the Department of Public Works Sewer Personal Services other than overtime to the Department of Public Works Sewer Personal Services overtime. This transfer is necessary in order to cover projected overtime expenses and emergencies for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Referred to the Finance Committee.
Ordered that the following named sum being the same as hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $100,000 from the Department of Public Works Water Personal Services other than overtime to Department of Public Works Water Personal Services overtime. This transfer is necessary in order to cover projected overtime expenses and emergencies for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Referred to the Finance Committee.
Ordered that the City Council authorizes the previously appropriated funds of the American Rescue Plan Act that exceed the $750,000 threshold for the following projects. City Hall exterior upgrades, $4 million. City Hall HVAC, $8 million. War Memorial HVAC, $7,125,000. Senior Center expansion, $6,325,000. Emergency Operations Center, $1,800,000. Public interest projects, Liberty Tree and Abolitionist Park, $1,200,000. Sycamore Grove, $2 million. Nonprofit fund distribution, $2 million. Parks and playgrounds, Cosgrove Pool, $4,300,000. Parks and playgrounds improvements, $1,840,000. Total parks, $6,140,000. Grand total, $38,590,000.
That is referred to the Finance Committee.
Resolved, be it resolved that the Mayor, Robert Sullivan, and the Chief Financial Officer, Troy Clarkson, be invited to come before the Finance Committee to provide an update regarding ARPA funding, spending, and infrastructure planning.
Referred to the Finance Committee.
Number 64, resolved, be it resolved to have Yolanda Kiner, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager for the City of Brockton, be invited to appear before the Brockton City Council Standing Committee on Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion to discuss her plans and ideas related to the same. Further, that Ms. Kiner inform the City Council how it can help move these ideas forward.
Referred to the Committee on Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Councilor Azak.
Mr. President, I make a motion to accept two late files.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to accept two late files. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Mr. Clerk.
Resolved in City Council, April 11, 2022. Whereas prostate cancer occurs in approximately 250,000 new cases every year. Whereas, according to the American Cancer Society, approximately 1 in 41 men will die from the effects of prostate cancer. Whereas prostate cancer disproportionately affects African American men. Whereas African American men are more than twice as likely to die from prostate cancer than others. Be it resolved to have Stephen Bernard of the Brockton area branch of the NAACP appear before a committee of this council to make a presentation on the efforts of the organization to spread awareness of the efforts to educate the public on the need for early diagnosis and treatment options via the Prostate Cancer Awareness Campaign.
That is referred to the Finance Committee.
Resolved in City Council, April 11, 2022, whereas home fires claim approximately 7 lives every day in this country, whereas working smoke detectors can cut the risk of death by over 50%. Be it resolved to have a representative of the Brockton Area Red Cross appear before a committee of this council to highlight their efforts in the Sound the Alarm campaign to install 50,000 free smoke alarms and share in this country and share safety information in at-risk communities across the country.
Referred to the Finance Committee. Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion for the council to accept a late file.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to accept a late file. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
And this is the communication from the mayor.
This is a communication from the mayor to the members of the city council. I hereby appoint Manny Centeo of 29 Kenneth Ave, Brockton, to Chair of the Brockton Parking Authority. If you have any questions, please call my office. Respectfully submitted, Robert F. Sullivan, Mayor, City of Brockton.
Accepted and filed.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to file another late file with the,
Councilor Rodriguez.
Second.
Motion properly made and seconded. All in favor to accept the late file? All opposed? The motion passes.
Ordinance, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton as follows, that the City Council adopt the following amendments to the Section 24-24.4 Adult Use of Marijuana relative to regulation and zoning of marijuana. Section 27-24.4 3A shall be amended to include marijuana couriers and marijuana delivery operators as principal permitted uses in I-1 Industrial Park Zone, subject to the restrictions contained in Section 27-24.4, subsection 3-A. Section 27-24.4, subsection 6I, shall be amended by striking the language in its entirety and inserting in its place hours of operation for deliveries, marijuana couriers, marijuana delivery operators, and marijuana establishments with a delivery endorsement shall only deliver marijuana between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Section 27-24.4, subsection 6, shall be amended by inserting the following sections. Marijuana couriers. All marijuana couriers must maintain a site location which allows for parking of delivery vehicles and office space to serve as a dispatch management location. Marijuana couriers are not permitted to store marijuana products on site. K, marijuana operators. All marijuana operators must maintain a site location for parking of delivery vehicles, storage warehouse, loading dock, and office, and are permitted to store marijuana on site. L, buffer zone for loading areas. A 10-foot buffer strip which shall be landscaped, bermed, or fenced at a suitable height and density to effectively screen the loading area and lights of delivery trucks from shining onto residential property shall be required for any marijuana courier or marijuana delivery operator sites located within 100 feet from residential property.
That is referred to the Ordinance Committee.
Ordinance and planning.
And planning. Councilors, are there any moments of personal privilege? Seeing none. Oh, Councilor Nacastro.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to wish all of our residents who will observe Passover this weekend a happy Passover, and those who will wish Easter this weekend a happy Easter. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Seeing no other business, we are adjourned.
Hi. Starting April 7th on BCA, we got a new look. We have public, educational, government, and HD. Look for them all.